compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
The Battle of Orbulak. A short warrior king with broad shoulders rushed towards his enemy. They crossed their swords and showed no mercy. The fierce battle continued on land. Finally, the enemy was defeated. In my opinion, the Battle of Orbulak has three aspects. The first aspect is the fact that the battle between Jangir Sultan and Erdeni Batur occurred. The second is the place where the battle took place, and the third aspect is the proportion of warriors in the battle. The Battle of Orbulak is a historical equation with three unknowns, or there may be even more than three of them. This is an attempt to solve a difficult problem. It was not a battle which was won only thanks to those 600 warriors. I call them special forces as they were equipped with the most modern firearms at that time. They won the battle because it was convenient to fight in that area and the Kazakhs took advantage of it. Chapter 1. Dzhangir's Secret. Only closer inspection can show what epoch it is. However, neither walkie-talkies nor jeans with chainmail spoiled the view. At one point in time, the counter was set back from 2015 to 1643. It is the largest scale historical reconstruction of the most legendary battle in the history of Kazakhstan. According to the benchmark data, 600 Kazakh warriors headed by Jangir fought against 50,000 warrior troops of the Dzhangir Erdeni Batur Huntaji. Later, Jalantos's troops entered the Battle of Orbulak and contributed to the victory. However, mysteries related to this story appeared long time before it started. They are connected with Jangir, who is called the Impressive Salkam. According to one version, Yesim Khan's son ascended the throne immediately after his father died in 1628. According to another version, Jangir was lifted on white felt after the victory over the Dzhungars. However, first the event confirmed by the sources occurred. Prior to the Battle of Orbulak, Jangir Sultan was taken prisoner by the Dzhungars in 1635 and spent a few years in captivity. Three versions of his escape are known. According to the first one, due to Jangir's good behavior, the guards relaxed their vigilance and he escaped. According to the second, his friends helped him escape from the enemy secretly. The third version is romantic and the most probable. The daughter of the Dzhangar prince helped her beloved run away. Later she became his wife and gave birth to a son called Tauke. After he escaped from captivity, he started a fierce and furious fight against the Dzhungars, constantly attacking them. It was a kind of guerrilla warfare because at that time he was not a Khan yet and could not have a large united army. Although the Jangir's armed forces were not numerous, they were highly trained like the special forces. They were a strain on the ruler of the Dzhungars. As a result, the Huntaji decided to attack the Kazakh Khanate in order to defeat the unruly Chenghisid, show an example to others and solve territorial disputes. It was a nomadic country where cattle raising developed to such an extent that it crossed the limits of the statehood in the Dzhangar Khanate. They needed new pastures and they could only get them near the eastern border where the Kazakh Khanate was. Dzhangir spent all the time creating a military coalition and building alliances with neighbors such as Mongolistan. He invited famous Bagators Karasai and Aguntai to join him and set up Milita. He made the preparations on time because the relatives who were among the Dzhangars had a herald to bring bad news. The enemy was going to attack. A part headed by Kundulin Shah refused to participate in the military actions because they supported Jangir Khan. The Dzhangarian ruler offered Prince Kondulen and his people to join him. But Kondulen refused, using his friendship with the Jangir Sultan, who considered himself as his son, as an excuse. According to Russian historian Levshin, there were 50,000 warriors in the united Dzhangarian troop. They invaded the Kazakh Khanate, and it took them a few days to kill or take prisoners almost 10,000 people. Chapter 2, like 300 Spartans. Whatever you think, 600 warriors cannot stand their ground fighting against such a huge army. In order to take every chance, Jangir urgently sent his loyal people to Jalantos, the emir of Samarkand, who was his father's friend, to ask for help. However, the allies' troop needed time to get there. The result of this certain fight depends on the peculiarities and characteristics of that area. Where it takes place, an important feature of the Jangir Khan's generalship was his ability to use local topography skillfully. Mathematical calculation involved topography plus tactics plus additional conditions. However, the first priority is the area of the battle. It is not easy to get the coordinates. The area where the fight took place was not even mentioned in the only written source. According to folk legends, it was the gorge near the Orbulak River. Beljailao Gorge connects the area near Lake Balkhash with Ili Valley is situated between the mountains, Altyn Yamel mountain range and Dzhungar Alatau. Now this area is in the Panfilov district near Jarkent town. Near, meaning 200 to 300 kilometers to be exact, there are steep slopes, mountain rivers and swamps. A track, some sections of which are visible, serves as a road. An iron horse is inferior to a steppe horse, who you can be absolutely confident that you'll get there if you go by a helicopter.
Большинство профессиональных историков не согласны с...
The majority of professional historians disagree with the localization of the battle, which is called Orbulak. In this area, because almost the whole Semirechye has belonged to the Dzhangars by 1643. Home front of the Dzhangars was in the gorge.
И вот это вот ущелье, оно было глубоким тылом Dzhangar.
A little squad of Jangir's foot soldiers could move here while a troop of 20,000 warriors could doubtfully pass through this area unnoticed, and probably would not be able to do it at all. Apart from that, the gorge was an ideal place for ensuring victory. Incidentally, battles similar to the Battle of Orbulak had already occurred in history. There was a battle between the Greeks and the Persians at the pass of Thermopylae. This was a small pass approximately a few tens of meters through which they could go no further to Greece. The Spartans actually had a large Greek army of 5,000 warriors beside them. They clashed with the army of Xerxes, which was the number of the Persian soldiers, which 80,000. This event, to a certain extent, can be compared to the deed performed by the 300 Spartans. However, the Spartans lost their battle, while Jangir did not only choose a good place, but also enhanced his chances of success thanks to the additional conditions. Chapter 3: The Power of Fire. As far as I know, matchlock guns had a tendency to almost explode in the hands of those who fired them. It depended on the gunpowder used. The coarse-grained gunpowder burnt evenly was much safer and enabled to make weapons which were lighter than cannons. Those weapons changed the world. A shot covered half a kilometer per second and no knight's armor could withstand it.
Начиная с середины 17 века в кочевые государства проникает огнестрельное оружие.
Firearms appeared in the nomadic states in the middle of the 17th century. In the beginning, there were very large and heavy muskets and huge rifles. Their muzzles were huge, bullets were very powerful too.
Отверстием для пуль. Пули отливались очень мощные.
These weapons were not cheap. The cheapest one costed 10 horses. They were called Kara Maltik because black smoke appeared after the shot was taken. They were mainly bought from Tashkent, Bukhara and Samarkand. Local gunsmiths started producing muskets and gunpowder. It is an unprecedented fact proven in written source that Dzhangir's guards were equipped with the most modern military guns at that time. So-called Kara Maltiks made a significant contribution to the victory over the Dzhangar's troops. It is a fantastic fact that the Kazakh warriors held at least 300 most modern weapons of that time. It was the first time firearms were used on a wide scale in a steppe battle. Probably Jangir Sultan had access or had various family connections, thanks to which he provided his small squad with firearms. According to some data, fugitive Don Cossacks helped foot soldiers learn new military techniques. However, Dzhangir managed to include many components in the victory formula. They were the experience he got in captivity, using the weapons and knowledge about the area. There is another interesting point too. Dzhangir's members of militia dug trenches and stayed in them. There is really a kind of little ditch on the top of this hill. Probably somebody really dug it and there were fights. Muskets, trenches, and even the first chemical weapons were used there. According to legendary information, Kazakh warriors threw burning poisonous grass at the enemies and a part of the Dzhangars suffocated in the smoke. However, there is no information about this in the only source. It is difficult to believe that there were 300 rifles costing at least 3,000 horses, trenches called shanets, and 600 people were fighting against 50,000. However, contemporaries are not related to either the Dzhangars or the Kazakh warriors provided this information. Dzhangir dug trenches between stones and told 300 people to sit there with firearms. He and the other 300 people found cover behind a stone. When the ruler of the Dzhangars and his warriors were approaching the trenches, many of his people were killed. Dzhangir with his soldiers attacked them from the other side and killed about 10,000 Dzhangars. The snipers did not let the Dzhangarian troop pass through the gorge. The enemies could not go round the Dzhangir squads either. Then Jalan Tos's army came. The flag of victory sparkled in the cloud of dust lifted by thousands of hooves. It was the victory of the Kazakh troop. Epilogue: a legendary battle. They used tactics which provided victory. They had the latest technology and celebrated victory, which put all of them in a jovial mood. Nevertheless, the Kazakh troop did not adapt to the military innovations, but the Dzhangars started using them. From that time, the Dzhangars began to arm themselves, or would arm themselves with firearms to be exact. The Kazakh soldiers did not use firearms on a massive scale for many years after the Battle of Orbulak, although there were arms markets in Bukhara and long rifles were sold even in Turkestan. However, there were a lot of reasons for that. The only fact which is beyond doubt is the Battle of Orbulak was and is one of the most legendary pages in the history of the Kazakh Khanates.